What's up, guys? MLB Corner Page here. We got Matt and Taylor back again. Yesterday, we talked a lot about Babe Ruth's birthday and discussed the NL West. And after kind of talking with Matt, we just decided, with it being Babe Ruth's birthday, we wanted to talk. That inspired us to talk about the worst trades of all time. As you all know, he was involved in a pretty bad one, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. So we just want to kick off with a few honorable mentions, and we'll get right into our list. Matt, who'd you have for some honorable mentions, man?
I'd have to say the Syndergaard and Darnell trade. R.A. Dickey had just won that Cy Young award. They were traded him. They needed a little more power, so they went with Darnell. Then Syndergaard was actually the off piece of that trade. They weren't even. I mean, he was just kind of like a prospect at the time. But Syndergaard ended up being the best player by far.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Blue Jays really didn't get much out of Dickey, if we're being honest. So I feel like that trade bit him in the butt, really.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
Yeah, they were in such a win mode now. They took a bet on Dickey, and it didn't work, let's be honest.
Yeah, one of the big ones for me was the Yelich trade, though. I'll never forget this trade. I get that the Marlins were not in a win now type of time for their team, but I mean, they just got pennies for what ends up being one of the best players in the league right now. I mean, you look at Lewis Brinson. I think he's going to be pretty good, but he's definitely not going to equivalate to a Yelich.
Yeah. If you got Yelich, you keep Yelich, But we have to put it as an honorable mention though, because there were 4 players in that trade. Monte Harrison is actually looking better in their minor league system, so in 5 years from now, this may not be as bad as it looks. But at the end of the day, guys, I mean, Christian Yelich almost won 2 MVPs.
Yeah.
He's got 1, and there's no doubt he's a top 5 player in the league.
And I think Yamamoto could be really good. He's really young. He could be solid, but I mean, like you said, you build off a guy like Yelich, especially after letting Stanton go too. You got to keep one of the two, and the Marlins just they're in a tough spot. And I think the farm system, could have got better with this trade, but they just didn't get quite enough.
No, I agree completely. And who do you have for the last honorable mention before we kick it?
My least favorite trade of all time. Well, as a Braves fan, the reason I say that is a lot of people don't realize when the Braves went after J.D. Drew in this trade, they traded away Jason Marquis, who was a pretty good pitcher, and Ray King, who actually helped our bullpen a lot. But the biggest part of this trade, which back then was just a little addition to it, was Adam Wainwright. And he went on to have a pretty prestigious career, and that's really came back.
Really good career.
Really
good career.
Came back to bite us in the butt.
And I always liked Ray King when he was with the Braves too. He threw a nice 89-mile-per-hour sinker that was just tough to hit. So,
and to give a guy like Adam Wainwright up, not to take away from J.D. Drew, I like J.D. Drew, but for a backup catcher in Eli Marrero, that's just been one that's haunted us for a while.
So before we kick into the top 10, also we are doing the giveaway today for the hat on the Instagram page. Definitely follow us on Instagram and Twitter at MLB Corner Page. Links in the description. So let's just kick right into it. Who do you have for your number 10?
It was a tough one. I'll be honest. The Giants trade for Joe Nathan and Francisco Liriano.
Now they traded Joe Nathan and Liriano for Przinsky, because Przinsky they needed this was before the Posey days, and they really needed somebody. They had Kent, they had Bonds, and they needed another offensive guy. And Przinsky could have maybe been that guy, but he only stayed with them for 1 year.
Yep.
So that trade didn't work out. Joe Nathan, one of the best closers in the league by far.
Absolutely. And
Liriano had a pretty good career himself. So,
I think they gave up a lot for 1 year.
Yeah, for 1 year for Przinsky. And even if Przinsky had stayed and kept those same numbers, I still don't think the trade works out.
No.
Yeah.
I agree. So, number 9, so that was obviously number 10. Number 9 was when the Orioles shipped Curt Schilling off. Obviously, that came back to bite him pretty big. Pete Harnish was also in that trade. and they traded away, or they got back Steve Finley and Glenn Davis. But what do you think about that one?
So they traded Kurt Schilling, Harnish, and Finley for Glenn Davis.
Okay.
And now Schilling, we know Schilling. I mean, one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. No matter what you think of the guy, just 2 World Series rings and was probably the most clutch player, clutch pitcher. But Steve Finley had a great career. Played till he was 42. Pete Harnish had a pretty good career himself. He had like 2 16-win seasons. So those were 3 really good players for a guy in Glenn Davis who was basically out of the league like 3 years later.
Yeah. Next, at number 8, we had the Aroldis Chapman trade. I know this is one you talk about all the time.
Yeah. I mean, don't even the names on this. Caleb Cotham, Tony Renda, Ricky Davis. Like these guys aren't even with the Reds anymore, and we've seen what Chapman can do. I mean, what do you need to say? I mean, Chapman's been electric ever since he's left Cincinnati. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's had a pretty great career. I think arguably, maybe not one of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Probably the most electrifying closer we've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I mean, when you're throwing 105, I mean, that's, a 95 changeup. I'm a big Chapman fan, so I think the Reds traded him for. The thing was, these guys didn't really even have a high ceiling.
No.
Much of them were in Double-A baseball. Like when if they got to the majors, didn't play more than 20 games for them. So, I mean, you had your guy.
Yeah, I think they missed big with that one. Not that they were in a win now type of situation, but they had some really good pieces on that roster. I mean, like you look back at a guy like Votto sitting there on the roster. He wants to win ball games, and when you ship off a closer like that, you're just pretty much telling your roster, we don't care about winning right now.
Yeah.
So it's got to be pretty demoralizing for a guy like him. Next, and this one's actually one of my favorite trades. Looking back, the number 7 for us is the Veritek trade. I think the Red Sox really won this trade overall. The Mariners gave up a lot for a little, shipping Derek Lowe and Jason Veritek out, and just not getting a whole big haul with Heath Slocum, who I know we talked about it. He just didn't have a good career.
Well, Slocum was a pretty solid pitcher, but he just got injured. I mean, like he never got healthy again, and his body deteriorated. I actually saw Veritek play at Georgia Tech. It was clear the dude was going to be a major league player. Like it was clear he had it, And Derek Lowe was a really good pitcher for Boston for a long time. So,
and if I remember correctly, Heath Slocum, he had a really solid year the year he was traded, wasn't it? He went 9-0.
No, you're thinking of Doyle Alexander.
Okay.
That later trade, but Slocum, he got hurt, man. Like the trade didn't work out. And Veritek and Lowe were pretty instrumental in those World Series.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the next number 6, we got the A's send Mark McGwire to the Cardinals for nothing.
Literally nothing. That's all you can say about that trade. I mean, one of the top baseball players that we have seen in a generation for literally pennies.
Yeah, the pitchers were T.J. Matthews, Blake Stein, and Ludwig. Eric, like 2 of these guys never even played for him, and the other one pitched in 24 games. So Mark McGwire, no matter what you think of him, he hit 70 home runs, and he really brought a lot of publicity to St. Louis, St. Louis, to the whole St. Louis system.
Absolutely.
Like the Cardinals won big on this trade. This trade could be even further up the list if you look at it from that perspective, considering the A's just didn't get anything at all.
Yeah, literally nothing. I mean, like you said, a few of them never even made it up to the major leagues, and I mean that's the problem with trading. 3 prospects away for a guy who is proven. You just never know. They're exactly that, prospects, and I get that it's a high risk, high reward, but sometimes all the signals point, don't do it.
Yeah.
In this situation, just don't understand why they thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I think number 5 we got the Bagwell trade.
Yeah.
They traded to the Astros for Larry Anderson. Bagwell, Hall of Famer, got right in, 1,500 RBIs, 400 home runs. For Larry Anderson, who was just a pretty middle-of-the-road reliever if you ever saw one, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Bagwell went on to be the Rookie of the Year.
Yep, an MVP in '94.
Yeah, a few years later took the MVP. I mean, you're looking at a guy that's now a Hall of Famer that was traded for pennies again. I mean, this is a guy that could have directly impacted the Red Sox a long time ago, put them in a position to win in the 90s instead of having to wait it out a few more years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Bagwell could have been huge in the city.
Absolutely.
But
number 4.
Who got number 4?
This was a good one. It worked out pretty well for both teams early on, and then it just kind of fell off. So we've got John Smoltz for Doyle Alexander. This is a big one for the Braves. I mean, this one completely changed the 1, 2, 3 in the rotation for the Braves for many years to come. And to get a guy like Smoltz for Doyle Alexander, I mean, Doyle was good. He went 9-0 in his first season with the Tigers, and then ended up just having a really bad postseason.
Yeah.
And had he not had that really bad postseason, going 0-2 with an 8-something ERA.
That is a 10.
Was it 10? Yeah, it was up there.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have probably stayed around for a while, but what do you think about that?
I just think he lost his confidence. I think he was never the same pitcher. And then Smoltz, Cy Young winner, 200 wins, 100 saves. And, I mean, huge in the 90s Braves system. Won a World Series. And, I mean, 200 wins, 100 saves. Like, that's never been done.
No, it's huge. Like I said, it completely changed that rotation and ended up just putting the Braves in a really good position to be competitive for years to come. So
yeah, Smoltz is one of my favorite pitchers.
Absolutely.
By far. Yeah. So number 3, the Rangers traded Sammy Sosa to the White Sox for Harold Baines. Harold Baines is one of the best DH hitters of all time. A great baseball player. But they literally trade him at the trade deadline, and then he doesn't re-sign with them. And then Sammy Sosa. Imagine if Sammy Sosa had stayed through the Rangers farm system all those years.
right.
I mean, through their system and played for the Rangers all those years. Like, how good the Rangers could have been with Juan Gonzalez, Ivan Rodriguez. I mean, he's in that lineup,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think this one really came back to bite him. And like you said, it's not like
Palmeiro.
Palmeiro as well.
Yeah.
Baines didn't stay long at all. So, I mean, it was one of those things that at the end of the year, you wash your hands with the player and they're gone. And that's why it's so hard for a GM to say, all right, I'm going to go all out on this guy and not get him back. And that's why when you're giving up prospects or a guy like Sosa, I mean, you really have to count on re-signing that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Baines, good player, though. He really is. I think it was 346 home runs. So, I mean, he didn't stay, though. What can you say? He didn't stay. And that's a big risk you take at those trade deadlines. So,
number 2, we've got Randy Johnson. And this is one, I mean, he's been obviously traded a couple of times.
Yeah.
And this is one of those ones where I think,
I mean, to go from the Expos to the Mariners, these are the King Griffey Jr. Mariner, A-Rod Mariner days, by the way. So, I was a big Mariners fan back in the 90s when they had Randy. But
who wouldn't be?
Yeah, but you got to think, like, what if Randy Johnson had stayed in Montreal? Like, he was such a, fun player to watch.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying he could have saved baseball in Montreal by any means, but it's just, because in that same farm system, they also had Larry Walker.
Right.
You got to think about that. Like, those two guys had stayed with the Expos, and then eventually they bring Pedro Martinez on that same team. Like, what that team could have been. And they got pennies for him. The names are Mark Langston and Mike Campbell. I don't think Langston did anything, and I think Campbell maybe lasted 2 seasons with him. So, Randy, did have a little bit of trouble throwing strikes early on in his career, just because he threw so hard. But a good pitching coach would have fixed that. You got a 6'10" guy throwing 100 miles an hour.
And we've seen Randy get shipped off quite a few times, and I think like this, there were a few where it was fair trades. Like he got traded for some, young studs early on in his career, and then a trade like this where he just, you get him for basically nothing. It's like, wow, this one really worked out for one team, and the others it just completely looks terrible on paper.
It's just a big what if.
Exactly.
For sure. And then I don't think there's any doubt who the number one.
Number one of all time, absolutely.
Yeah.
We kicked off talking about Babe Ruth. His birthday was yesterday. Well, guess what? He's the worst trade of all time.
Because the thing is okay. Randy Johnson trade, Sammy Sosa trade, Tigers trade. They got a player back. The Red Sox trade Babe Ruth for cash. They just needed cash, and you got a guy that could have been a Hall of Famer as a pitcher.
Right.
Like he was that talented.
He was a two-way player who was super talented. Could have been a Hall of Famer on both aspects of the field. But I think the biggest thing that will impact this trade forever is looking back, like you said, they got nothing in return but some cash. Back then, cash was nothing in baseball. It's all about who you're getting. But the most important part is what it did to this franchise.
Yeah.
The curse came because of this trade.
Yep. It's over now, but all those years, man, with the Red Sox.
You're talking about an 80-year time frame.
Yeah.
Of changing a franchise completely thanks to a trade like this.
Yep. Babe Ruth, his very first year with the Yankees, hits 54 home runs. That tells you right away who got the better end of that.
Yeah. I think the Red Sox look back, and obviously big rivalry there, but they have to look back and just really hate what they did in that front office.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, we appreciate the views. We appreciate the support. We're going to really work hard this weekend to figure out some editing techniques. I think we're just going to probably do a couple quizzes, post those this weekend. But next week, we're going to get right back into our predictions, figure out who's going to win the AL East, the AL Central, the AL West, and just get ready for baseball season. Man.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff really in the pipeline coming up. I know we're just to fill you guys in and give you a little bit of a heads up on some things we're going to be doing here at MLB Corner Page. Stay tuned because we're going to be taking care of some fantasy knowledge for you. That's going to be coming down the pipeline real soon. You want to tell them about the rest?
Yeah, so the giveaways today for the hat, the giveaway next Wednesday for the Hank Aaron oil painting is going to be drawn out. And here pretty soon, man, I'm planning on going to the Durham Bulls Stadium here in about a month or so. Great stadium. Just going to really be getting ready for the season, getting ready for getting this page really rolling. So
all you have to do to get entered in the contest is like it, tag 3 friends, and make sure you're following MLB Corner Page on Instagram. That's all you have to do to get entered to win. So if you're looking for a new hat before the season kicks off, that's your chance. Tag 3 friends, follow the page, and like the post. All right, guys. We will see you next week when we predict you said AL East first?
We'll got these.
So AL East first on Monday. All you AL East fans, come ready. We're gonna throw some interesting standings at you. A lot of changes this year with Mookie Betts gone, so you'll be excited to see it. Y'all have a great weekend.
Take care.